If you wish to dive into the palette of colour in more detail, Victoria Finlay has written a book called Colour, A Natural History of the Palette. And it's the beginning of the rainbow, she says, the paint box. She goes through ochre, black, brown, all the way through to violet, the end, as she says, of the rainbow. What she has done is, in fact, travelled. She's looked at the sources of colour and the countries they come from. And it's often very mysterious, very protected, because certain colours used to be rare to get, so they could only be worn by certain people, royalty or religious people. She's got a wonderful selection of colours and history. Cochineal insects on a cactus leaf just before they become colour additive. You see, some of these plants and these insects will only prosper in certain countries. Ochre, Indian yellow pigment nuggets from Winsor and Newton. So there's lots to keep you interested then. There's a recipe for curing gangrene using verdigris. So it has little notes and tidbits about everything, but it's based on geography. It's based on history, the history of the actual source where you could find these wonderful, wonderful colours and how they developed and how they were transported. It's a very interesting book. I would highly recommend it. Cynthia Rowley says, until I read this book, I was colourblind. Cleopatra used saffron, a source of yellow colour, for seduction. So there you go. The Secret Lives of Colour by Cassia St. Clair takes an unusual look at colour. From scarlet women to imperial purple, from the brown that changed the way battles were fought to the white that protected against the plague, from Kelly green to acid yellow, the surprising stories of colour run like a bright thread through our history. Yeah, although it's not taking you geographically through the colour palette, as it were, what it does is it finds reasons why things are called certain colours. Let's, for example, look at scarlet. Now, Mary Queen of Scots, forgive me if this is history outside your knowledge, there was a serious battle going on in England in 15th, 16th century, Catholic, Protestant, all the rest of it. But Mary Queen of Scots was being executed, and she turned up at the chopping block, so to speak, wearing a scarlet gown. For those hostile to the Scottish Queen and her faith, however, her bright red dress was a clear link to the archetypal scarlet woman, the biblical whore of Babylon. So this is where we get this scarlet woman from. There are other stories linked to it as well, but I just want to give you a hint of what this... Oh yeah, this is a funny one. On August the 21st of April 1978, the British punk band X-Ray Specs released 15,000 limited edition copies of their new single, The Day the World Turned a Dayglow, on pumpkin orange 7-inch vinyl. On the cover, a globe roughly coloured in a mixture of yellow, red and poison bright pink stands against a lime background. The song's lyrics almost incomprehensible in lead singer Polystyrene's screeching yowl bemoan the world's seeping artificiality. I think that's something we could apply very much to today. Oh, Mountbatten Pink, this is an interesting one. There was a sea line, a shipping line, cruise ships, called the Union Castle ship, and they had pink lined across and silver and all sorts of nonsense. Anyway, during the Second World War, the beginning of the Second World War, Lord Mountbatten, sorry again if this is outside your history and geography knowledge, we were suffering, the English, because I'm English as you probably recognise, were suffering heavy blows on their ships by planes and stuff, and he was looking at how can we camouflage our ships better, not zebra stripes or anything. Anyway, he ended up with, he became convinced that the Union Castle's distinctive hull colour might be the very thing that the Navy had been looking for. While it stood out during the day, at dawn and dusk, two of the most treacherous times for attacks on ships, the dull pucey colour seemed to disappear. Before long, all the destroyers in his flotilla were painted medium grey with a dash of red, a tone that quickly became known as Mountbatten Pink. Now, I'm telling you this because these are not colours you're going to find in your paint box. I don't think I've seen on any watercolour or acrylic or oil producing companies the colour Mountbatten Pink. So this is another look at colour, and it's really it's interesting and it's amusing, and it makes you realise how important colour is. You know, khaki, God, English soldiers and American soldiers, everybody else, used to wear bright colours so that you could find your troop, your team. And then they discovered, well, it's better actually to dress the colour of the landscape. So that's how khaki came around. Anyway, there it is for what it's worth. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The Secret Lives of Colour. So enjoy.